Are you kidding me? Obama asked, clearly taken aback by the absurd justification provided for the absence of the training data. Unfortunately, no, Mr. President, Hagel responded, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. Based on our investigation and information from insider sources, we have confirmed that the company only constructed the server farm after the program was already developed and he earned enough money to do so. Hagel paused once again before continuing, his tone filled with concern. Furthermore, we are facing challenges with utilizing FISA again. The documents released by Snowden have significantly heightened public sensitivity towards surveillance technology. They would exploit this situation and manipulate public opinion, claiming that the government intends to exploit device vulnerabilities for nefarious purposes. Hagel concluded his explanation, aware of the complex hurdles they were facing. How about inviting him for a friendly tea meeting at one of your black sites? Obama suggested, turning to James, the FBI director. Our attempts to do so have been unsuccessful so far. He has been staying at his heavily guarded home ever since the suspected FSB spies attacked. Just as we finalized a plan to capture him despite the heightened security, he started traveling across Europe, carefully covering his tracks along the way. By the time we were able to determine his location and dispatch our team, he would have already moved to another place, James explained. Keep searching for alternative methods. With full control over the entire program, we will have no rivals in the cyber warfare domain, Obama instructed. Yes, Mr. President, both James and Hagel replied in unison, acknowledging Obama's directive. Lubyanka Square, Moscow Center. The Technical Security Department, of the FSB, responsible for decrypting and integrating Bug Zapper into their infrastructure to enhance its security comparable to the level attained by NATO members who acquired the program from the same company, though in different ways, was convened for a meeting with Sergei Naryshkin, the director of the Counterintelligence Directorate, UC. They all appeared anxious, their nervousness palpable, as they were uncertain about the purpose of this meeting. The Kremlin has expressed great satisfaction with your efforts in successfully implementing the program across our infrastructure and enhancing its security to the extent that it rivals the systems obtained by NATO members, who paid over $10 billion for them. Additionally, we have even exported the program to our allied nations, granting us greater negotiation power. Well done, Sergei Naryshkin stated and immediately started clapping, which was followed by everyone else in the room joining in. Thank you, sir, expressed Maxim, the director of Department D, as he expressed gratitude to Sergei for acknowledging their diligent efforts. Your team will be generously rewarded by the Kremlin in the coming months, Sergei announced. The news filled the room with elation and joy, prompting another round of applause from all the department members, expressing their excitement and happiness. But your work is not yet complete, Sergei stated after the applause subsided, causing a slight tensing among them. As everyone's attention refocused on him, Sergei continued, we require your team to commence the development of the program further, enhancing its capabilities to identify system vulnerabilities even without access to their source code. Sir, while it is theoretically possible for us to enhance the program's capabilities to identify system weaknesses without relying on the source code, we have discovered that the program's foundation is built upon the assumption that it has access to the source code to identify and list vulnerabilities. Therefore, to fulfill the capabilities you mentioned, we would need to rebuild the program from scratch, which would be a time-consuming process, Maxim explained. He wanted to ensure that Sergei didn't leave with unrealistic expectations of completing the task within a few months, as he didn't want to face the consequences of disappointing him and potentially slipping and falling through the window of a high-story building while suffering from a hypothetical fatigue-induced sickness. You need not worry about time constraints, reassured Sergei. The Kremlin has granted you a flexible timeline, allowing you more than a year to complete the development. The objective is to have it ready for a forthcoming special operation as it is planned for it to be used for destabilizing the Ukrainian infrastructure. Yes, sir. We will exert our utmost efforts to complete the program within the allocated timeline, Maxim responded, feeling relieved to learn that they had more time than initially anticipated. It appears that we have been of great value to our beloved mother Russia, Maxim and his team thought to themselves. Keep up the good work, then, Sergei commended, wasting no further time with them. He rose from his seat, bid them farewell, and departed from the conference room, leaving the team behind. Once Sergei had left and only the team remained, Maxim turned to them and declared, "Comrades, today the vodka is on me." Yes, the team members shouted in celebration at the thought of free vodka. Subsequently, they departed from Lubyanka Square and headed to the nearest bar to indulge in drinks, taking advantage of the day off granted by Sergei. Back inside the Lubyanka Square, Vladimir could be seen sitting in his office, where a prominently displayed nameplate revealed his new position as the Director of Department A, within the Directorate of Counterintelligence, UC, of the Federal Security Service, FSB. This particular department held the responsibility for conducting intelligence operations involving clandestine agents commonly known as illegals. The term illegals refers to intelligence operatives who operate covertly, assuming false identities and blending in as ordinary citizens in foreign countries. Did Yevgeny Buryukov send us the collected economic intelligence from the United States for the first quarter of this year? He inquired of his secretary, requesting the report on their undercover operative, who was currently operating in the U.S. under the guise of an investment banker. "Sir, he reported that he will send us the report by the end of this month, along with the report for the second quarter," his beautiful secretary Natasha informed him. "What about Maria Butina?" he asked, referring to another operative from their department. Natasha reviewed the document in her hands and reported, "Maria Butina continues to expand her influence within the political sphere, but she suspects that she is under scrutiny by the FBI and CIA. She has expressed her intention not to report back until she can ascertain the extent of suspicion surrounding her." Following that, he started reviewing all the reports regarding double agents and spies within his division. After looking through all of them, he raised his hand and asked, "How is Aaron's situation?" seeking an update on Aaron's status. "He is presently visiting various locations in America, but it appears that he only stays in hotels during his visits. There is no additional activity observed, as he simply moves on to another hotel after a certain period of time, sir," Natasha reported, highlighting the unusual nature of Aaron's movements. "But sir, may I ask you something?" Natasha requested permission to pose a question that had been puzzling her. "Go ahead," Vladimir said, granting her permission to ask the question. "Why are we keeping a close watch on Aaron? He no longer holds any significance for us, and we are merely wasting our limited resources by monitoring him," Natasha questioned. "You remember that I was promoted because I successfully obtained the important program he developed, right?" Vladimir asked. "Yes," Natasha answered. "Then, do you believe he won't develop another one anytime soon?" Vladimir asked. "No, if he was able to develop one program, it is likely that he would be capable of developing another," Natasha said after a brief pause to think. "That's precisely why I'm utilizing government resources to monitor him. By doing so, when he develops another program, we will be able to acquire it more swiftly than before," Vladimir clarified, elaborating on his rationale for continuing to keep an eye on Aaron. "But don't you think he's aware of our surveillance? Ever since you shot him, he has significantly heightened his security measures to a worrisome extent, and all of his security team members are professionals in their respective fields," Natasha voiced her concerns. "He hasn't discovered it yet because if he had, he would have taken action. He still perceives what happened to him as ordinary industrial espionage," Vladimir explained with an amused tone. "I often wonder, how can someone be so intelligent and yet so oblivious?" Vladimir chuckled as he contemplated the irony of the man who inadvertently facilitated his promotion, unaware that it was orchestrated by a foreign nation. "Could he be deliberately pretending not to have discovered our surveillance?" Natasha questioned, considering the possibility that Aaron's strange behavior might be a deliberate attempt to deceive them. "I don't believe he would go to such lengths just to play mind games with us. Even if he did discover us, he wouldn't know our true identity or origin. He might simply think that they are surveillance operatives sent by a competing company." Vladimir expressed his disagreement with Natasha's hypothesis. He believed that while Aaron was undoubtedly brilliant in software development, he lacked intelligence in other aspects of his life. Lab City, VR and AR Research Institute, White, inside the meeting room, researchers could be seen sitting eagerly anticipating the completion of their latest creation. They were patiently waiting for their latest invention to finish printing so that they could test and see its results. Shortly after that, Houston stepped into the room, holding a plate filled with intricate minuscule gadgets the size of fingernails. Silently, he placed the plate at the very center of the table before settling into a chair. Without delay, everyone in the room reached out and retrieved the minuscule devices, carefully tucking them behind their ears. Everyone in the room said, "AR mode," albeit with different timing, causing an instant activation of the devices. Within microseconds, the gadgets projected a holographic screen before them, emanating a gentle green glow to indicate that they were now functioning in standard AR mode. In a breathtaking display, a myriad of virtual elements materialized, seamlessly blending with reality, rendering them indistinguishable from anything that was real. When a few individuals attempted to physically interact with the digitally manifested object they saw through the device, it would transmit signals to their brains, creating the illusion of actually touching it. Furthermore, the device would restrict their movement within the object, enhancing the sensation and generating an extraordinary sense of realism. When they attempted to lift the devices, they were astonished to find that they could indeed raise them. To their amazement, the gadgets seamlessly communicated with their brains, evoking the perception of substantial weight, as though the objects they carried possessed genuine mass. "Brilliant," exclaimed one of the researchers, wholeheartedly concurring that they had successfully pushed the limits of progress and compactness in the realm of virtual and augmented reality. As they continued exploring the different functions of the device, unbeknownst to them, one individual mysteriously produced a gun from seemingly thin air. Without any prior warning, the individual aimed and fired the weapon directly at the center of the table. The instant the gunshot resounded, the devices positioned behind their ears swiftly picked up the changes and transitioned from their normal state to a vivid shade of red. To onlookers, the external appearance of the devices remained unchanged except for the altered color emanating from behind the ears. However, for the wearers of these devices, a wholly distinct experience was unfolding. "Wow," murmured one of them in a trance-like state, his eyes meticulously following the bullet's trajectory as it punctured the very heart of the table, leaving a conspicuous hole. The passage of the bullet seemed to unfold in slow motion, as if time itself had dramatically decelerated. As the bullet finally traversed its path, the device swiftly reverted to emitting its familiar green light, signifying a return to normal operations. "We have finally perfected the augmented reality time perception acceleration," exclaimed Houston with unbridled joy, completely disregarded the fact that someone had discharged a firearm in the room without any prior warning as if it were an ordinary event. To them, such antics held no cause for concern, for they possessed an unwavering assurance that no matter what they did, they would inevitably revert to a state of flawless well-being. "Yes, at last," Tristan exclaimed, wholeheartedly concurring with Issa. "Ever since we embarked on integrating this capability into augmented reality since the 76th generation, akin to what we had achieved in virtual reality back in the 46th generation of the device, we have now achieved perfection. Using it we can finally accelerate our perception of time in the real world, albeit for a mere second, during which it subjectively slows down 50-fold. However, Emmanuel interjected, gesturing towards the dwindling power levels displayed on their devices. "It consumes an excessive amount of power to sustain this function." He drew attention to the limited power reserves that remained after the recent demonstration. "For that particular issue, we simply need to await the breakthroughs from the laboratories engaged in alternative energy research, as well as the fusion and other departments dedicated to energy research," remarked Christina, the sole female researcher in the room. Her statement hinted that the solutions to the power consumption challenge would emerge from these innovative domains. "However, when it comes to VR and AR devices, we have reached the threshold of what conventional methods can achieve," Ezra elucidated, carefully removing the device from behind his ear and delicately placing it back onto the plate. "To surpass this point, we would need to venture into the realm of nanomachines. Unfortunately, the laboratory engaged in research within this domain is still in its developmental phase, compelling us to postpone any further exploration for now." "Indeed, it is regrettable," Ezra concurred, acknowledging the boundaries imposed by conventional size limitations. "However, the vastness of knowledge surrounding this subject still astounds me. It leaves me pondering how Mr. Aaron managed to achieve such a breakthrough," he mused, his admiration for Aaron's expertise and accomplishments serving as a humbling reminder of his own relative insignificance. "Sir Aaron's expertise is truly unparalleled," Logan exclaimed, his voice filled with a sense of wonder. The profound depth of knowledge displayed left him in awe. Despite numerous iterations spanning over 100 generations of these devices, they had ultimately reached the limits imposed by size constraints. However, they had neither encountered the threshold nor fully harnessed the vast knowledge bestowed upon them regarding this subject matter. "I must admit, I often find myself contemplating the same," chimed in another individual from among the group, their curiosity resonating with Logan's earlier sentiment. "I genuinely hope that we are granted the opportunity to meet him in the future," Logan expressed, voicing the collective aspiration shared by everyone in the city. The longing to encounter Aaron and Nova was fervent, as they had become figures of great fascination and admiration. "All right, let's get back to work, everyone," Ezra said, briefly pausing to gather their attention. After a moment, he continued, "With the production of new generations of VR and AR devices now officially concluded, now we have to upload the accumulated results to the Akashic server." "Yes," the unanimous nod of agreement rippled through the room. In unison, they closed their eyes and thought about their intentions of uploading their experiences and comprehensive research. A second later, a resounding proclamation reverberated in their consciousness: "Upload complete," indicating that they were done with the upload process. The Akashic server was a system devised by Nova to streamline the sharing of knowledge and research materials among all the labs in Lab City. It provided convenient access to technology and eliminated the need for researchers to worry about availability. The server housed vast amounts of data that could be easily assimilated by anyone in need of specific knowledge for their research. Inspired by Aaron's System Shop, the Akashic server allowed seamless retrieval of information without requiring any special procedures. It served as a centralized hub, enhancing collaboration and efficiency across the research communities within the city. Shortly after that, they opened their eyes and returned their focus to the meeting. "Now, while we await the culmination of nanomachine research, our next research project, bestowed upon us by Miss Nova, entails delving into the development of machinery that can autonomously produce the previous generations of VR devices we have crafted from scratch, as it is not yet known when the atomic printing research would be concluded," Ezra elucidated, providing his team with an overview of their forthcoming undertaking. "Yes," Houston responded eagerly upon learning about their next research project, his voice brimming with excitement. Engaging in research was something they all embraced wholeheartedly, devoid of any complaints. "Is there a particular VR device we should begin with, or are we free to choose at random?" Mason, another researcher, inquired, seeking clarity on the starting point for their project. "Yes, we have been instructed to commence with the standard virtual helmet and virtual reality chamber," Ezra responded. "These devices will be utilized to facilitate the assimilation of knowledge to soldiers within the virtual chamber during a specific period. Concurrently, the soldiers will be enhanced with a genetic-enhancing liquid that is currently undergoing research in the genetic engineering lab. Following that, we will then start making the machines that can manufacture every generation of the VR and AR devices for every generation and iteration we have ever made." With that, Ezra finished telling them the orders they had been given from Miss Nova. Everyone in the meeting room nodded, signifying their clear comprehension of the designated starting point for their research project. Tactical Pilot Helmet Research Institute, White. As soon as the knowledge about VR and AR was uploaded into the Akashic server, a research institute located at the center of the bustling city received the notification informing them that the knowledge they needed had been made available within the Akashic server and was ready for assimilation. Without a moment's delay, every individual within the laboratory eagerly assimilated the newly acquired knowledge into their own minds. After successfully completing the assimilation process, they promptly gathered in the meeting room to discuss their subsequent course of action. Tactical Pilot Helmet Research Institute, White. Within Lab City, there existed a cluster of specialized labs collaborating with each other to develop various products specifically designed for the same domain, the sky. These labs worked in conjunction with different teams responsible for creating diverse flying machines and their respective components. These labs encompassed a wide range of aircraft types and systems, including fighters, attack aircraft, bombers, airlift and tankers, surveillance and reconnaissance platforms, helicopters, trainer aircraft, special operations aircraft, unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. interceptors, air defense systems, strategic missile and space systems, experimental and research aircraft, remotely piloted aircraft, search and rescue platforms, electronic warfare systems, experimental prototypes, cargo and utility aircraft, presidential aircraft, airborne command and control platforms, airborne early warning and control systems, communications and satellites, as well as training and support aircraft. Each lab focused on specific areas to contribute to the comprehensive development of aerial technologies. This particular lab was specifically dedicated to the development of the tactical helmet, which would serve as the primary headgear for all future pilots in the Air Force. Currently, the lab was eagerly awaiting the completion of the AR and VR research lab's work. Once they concluded their research and uploaded the information to the Akashic server, the team in the Tactical Helmet Lab would be able to access and assimilate that knowledge, greatly aiding them in finalizing the design, conducting research tests, and progressing with the manufacturing process of what they referred to as the Universal Tactical Fighter Helmet. As soon as the knowledge about VR and AR was uploaded into the Akashic server, a research institute located on the outskirts of the city received the notification. Without a moment's delay, every individual within the laboratory eagerly assimilated the newly acquired knowledge into their own minds. After successfully completing the assimilation process, they promptly gathered in the meeting room to discuss their subsequent course of action. Inside the meeting room, "Which generation of the technology should we implement?" inquired Luke, the research team leader. His background as a former Lockheed engineer, where he had overseen the design, engineering, and testing of fighter plane helmets for both the F-22 and F-35, added an extra layer of assurance to his leadership position. Nova had materialized him with all of his fellow workers at the Skunk Works division after Aaron completed collecting the brain data of everyone on his list who was working there. "I believe we should utilize the 57th generation," suggested Issa, presenting his reasoning behind the choice. "It offers the best possible option for integration into the fighter jet pilot's helmet. With its advanced augmented reality, AR, capabilities, we can incorporate AR visuals directly into the helmet. Furthermore, since it establishes a connection with the pilot's brain, we can eliminate the need for a separate microphone and radio components. The device will seamlessly read the pilot's brain signals, ensuring clear audio transmission without any additional intervention. Its compact size allows us to incorporate two devices, one as a backup and the other as the primary unit. Additionally, the level of technology involved enables Sir Aaron to reproduce it in the real world without encountering any complications, if needed." Issa's detailed explanation showcased his careful evaluation of the available options, opting for a generation that, despite being less advanced than others, fulfilled the specific requirements for the fighter jet helmet. "I concur with that," Ibrahim affirmed, expressing his agreement with Issa's proposal. This elicited agreement from the majority, although not all members shared the same viewpoint. Andrew, on the other hand, raised his hand, capturing the attention of everyone in the room. Clearing his throat, he stated, "I recommend we utilize the 76th generation device. It would help us avoid potential issues that arose during the VR research team's testing of the 57th generation. I understand your reasoning behind recommending the 76th generation, which incorporates time perception acceleration and augmented reality. However, since it is the initial iteration of this technology and is still in the experimental phase, it is impractical for us to utilize it. It is not consumer-ready and lacks the necessary refinement for our purposes," Issa stated, firmly expressing his opposition to Andrew's suggestion. "To avoid that, all we have to do is use the 80th generation time perception acceleration tech and incorporate it into the body of the 76th generation, eliminating any potential issues with the first generation time perception." Andrew defended his choice against Issa's opposition. "But wouldn't doing it that way pose a challenge for Sir Aaron to bring this product to fruition given his current circumstances?" Ibrahim questioned, expressing his reservations about Andrew's suggestion. He seemed unconvinced and raised concerns about the feasibility of producing the device in the real world, considering the limitations faced by Sir Aaron. "Isn't the printing research team currently working on reverse engineering the atomic printers provided by Miss Nova?" Andrew countered, presenting his perspective. "If they succeed in accomplishing this task within the next few months, it won't matter which generation of the device we choose. Sir Aaron will have the capability to recreate any of them in the real world." Therefore, there is no need to worry about the production aspect. He highlighted the potential breakthrough that could arise from the printing research team's efforts, suggesting that it would render the concerns about producing a specific generation obsolete. Can we be certain that the atomic printer will be ready within that time frame? Ibrahim asked, seeking clarification from Andrew after his explanation. He expressed a degree of skepticism regarding the timeline and feasibility of completing the atomic printer. We are well aware that the research capabilities within the city are an exponential improvement compared to our previous circumstances, Andrew responded confidently. With access to what could be called inexhaustible research funds and materials, not to mention the novel machines at our disposal, it is unlikely that any research conducted under these conditions would take an extensive amount of time. The resources and support available to us greatly enhance our efficiency and expedites progress. He emphasized the favorable environment within the city, emphasizing that the combination of ample resources and advanced technology would accelerate any research done in these environments. While I share your confidence in the eventual success of the research, the exact timing of its completion remains uncertain, Ibrahim responded. Considering this uncertainty, I am inclined to agree with the suggestion of proceeding with the 57th generation. It is a more viable option given the current circumstances, ensuring that we can move forward with our project without relying on the completion of the atomic printer. Ibrahim expressed his preference for a more practical approach, opting for a generation that is readily available and doesn't depend on external factors. Furthermore, the limitation of the atomic printer is not the only factor influencing my recommendation to proceed with the 57th generation instead of the 76th generation you proposed, Issa added to complement Ibrahim's statement. Starting from the 65th generation onward, the devices incorporate a theoretical battery that is still in the research phase. This, among other considerations, reinforces my preference for the initial choice rather than your suggestion. I'm highly optimistic that the theoretical battery will be completed within the next month or two, Andrew persisted, reiterating his belief that the battery's imminent completion would alleviate any concerns regarding his proposed choice, leaving behind only the atomic printer as the only concern. He remained determined to convince the team to adopt his suggestion. The back-and-forth discussion continued until Luke, the team leader, intervened. With a firm strike on the table to capture everyone's attention, he commanded, "Enough arguing." The forceful action silenced the room, compelling everyone to cease their debates and direct their focus towards him. It was evident that Luke had an important statement to make. Seeing that he had captured their undivided attention, Luke began to speak. "Since you are unable to reach a consensus in a normal way, I have made the decision on your behalves. We will proceed with testing and manufacturing the helmets using the 57th generation of augmented reality technology and, however, before Luke could finish his statement, "But sir," Andrew interjected with his opinion, prompting an immediate response from Luke. "I'm not done speaking," Luke asserted firmly, silencing Andrew and reminding him of the importance of respecting the conversation flow. "Sorry," Andrew quickly apologized, realizing his mistake, as he had only intended to express his desire to research using the 76th generation of AR technology. Acknowledging Andrew's apology, Luke continued with his decision. "As I previously stated, we will proceed with our research using the 57th generation of technology. However, once we complete this project, we will move up by 10 generations at a time, continually advancing our research. This approach ensures that we are always one step ahead, ready with the next generation of technology as Sir Aaron's production capabilities expand. This includes being prepared with the latest technology when the atomic printer becomes available." Luke's plan aimed to maintain a progressive trajectory while accommodating future advancements in production capabilities. "Understood?" Luke asked, looking at both Ibrahim and Andrew, seeking assurance that they were attentive and on the same page. "Yes, sir," they both replied in agreement, a satisfied tone evident in their voices. It seemed that a resolution had been reached, allowing each of them to have their preferences fulfilled without one compromising the other's desires. Seeing that they were attentively listening to him, Thomas smiled before he stood up and declared, "The meeting is over." He then headed towards the door, making his way back to the labs where they would commence their research on the next generation tactical pilot helmet. This advanced helmet would be utilized by the pilots of the next generation fighter jet, which was currently being researched by various labs, including theirs. In deep contemplation, John could be seen lounged bare-chested on the hotel room balcony, his gaze fixed upon the sky. As a gentle breeze caressed him, the drapes that concealed the entrance to the hotel room's balcony fluttered, unveiling two peacefully slumbering beautiful women. Their naked bodies spoke of the shared intimacy they had experienced mere hours ago, a tale known only to them and destined to remain a secret held by the confines of the room and the whispers of the bedsheet. Their story, untold to the world, unless disclosed by those who partook in its clandestine embrace. As for the contemplating John, his thoughts wandered towards the events that transpired after his recovery. What should I do now? He pondered silently. In the past 3 weeks, he had indulged in all the activities he had yearned to experience during his injury-induced confinement, leaving no stone unturned. 3 weeks ago, a day after Aaron healed him, he wasted no time and headed straight to a bar, craving a momentary escape. Upon his arrival, he confidently placed an order for his beloved drink and settled in, waiting for its arrival. As the waiter gracefully presented him with his drink, he found himself captivated by her beauty. In a moment of impulsiveness, he hastily grasped the beer glass with his hand, eager to quench his thirst without delay. Crack! The glass shattered and splintered as a consequence of his inadvertently exerted, newfound strength, amplified after his recovery. "Wow!" they both exclaimed in genuine surprise and astonishment, their voices intertwining. "This is the first time I've witnessed someone shatter a glass just by holding it," the waitress remarked, her awe evident as she expressed her amazement towards him. "Seems like the glass had a pre-existing crack, and my slightly firmer grip must have been the trigger for its breakage," John said, attempting to shift the focus away from his augmented strength and attributing the incident to an alternate cause. "I really don't think so," the waitress responded, her tone reflecting deep contemplation as she pondered the glass's condition before its demise. "Do you genuinely believe I appear strong enough to shatter a glass with just one hand?" John inquired, employing a touch of logic in an attempt to reason with her. "Now that you put it that way, it does indeed seem highly implausible," the waitress replied, placing a finger on her lips. She was fascinated by what she saw from the glimpse of his well-toned physique when he asked her to look at his body to see if he has a body with the strength to break a glass with one hand. "I'm John Watcher, by the way," John introduced himself with a friendly smile, utilizing the new name bestowed upon him by Aaron. He extended his hand, offering a handshake as a gesture of goodwill. Although his first name remained unchanged for the sake of familiarity, his middle and last names had been altered. "I'm Aurora Nolan," she reciprocated, introducing herself with a warm smile as she firmly shook his extended hand. "Nice to meet you," she said, her enchanting smile revealing a set of immaculate, pearly white teeth. John couldn't help but be captivated by her beauty, momentarily transfixed by her radiant charm. "Nice to meet you too. Could I perhaps have a fresh drink? Judging by the state of the previous one, it doesn't seem easy to consume," John remarked with a touch of sarcasm, eliciting a hearty laugh from Aurora. "Yes, sir, I was actually about to bring you a fresh one, but it appears you'll need to visit the restroom," she pointed out, gesturing towards his trousers now dampened by the drink that had spilled onto him after he shattered the glass. "Ah, yes, where can I find the restroom?" John inquired, accompanied by a light chuckle. The realization dawned upon him that he had become so enthralled by Aurora's beauty when she initially served the drink that he had momentarily forgotten about his damp trousers resulting from the spilled beer. "It's over there," Aurora replied, gracefully pointing in the direction of the restroom, indicating where John could find it. "Thank you," John expressed his gratitude, before rising from his seat and making his way towards the restroom to attend to his damp trousers. "You're welcome," Aurora replied, her gaze lingering on the sculpted back of John's physique before she turned away to retrieve his fresh drink. Upon his return from the restroom, John discovered that Aurora had already placed his drink on the table, carefully covering it with a cup lid. She had also diligently wiped away any traces of the spilled beer, ensuring a clean and tidy surface before she returned to continue doing her job. Taking his seat once again, John indulged in his drink, relishing each sip as if it had been an eternity since he last savored its taste. With every sip, he immersed himself in the flavors, savoring the beverage until he eventually reached the bottom of the glass. Upon finishing his drink, John called for a waiter, and a different member of the staff, not Aurora, responded to his call and came over to attend to him. Slightly disappointed, he proceeded to order another glass of the same drink he had been enjoying. Having consumed over 10 glasses of the drink without feeling the slightest hint of intoxication, he mused to himself, "I'm not sure what Sir Aaron did to me, but I must say, I'm thoroughly enjoying this new body of mine." Sensing that he was impervious to intoxication, save for the persistent urge to relieve himself, he made the decision to leverage his rejuvenated appearance and youthful physique. Determined to revel in the pleasures he had been deprived of in the past, he resolved to visit a nightclub and indulge in an evening of entertainment and enjoyment that had long been inaccessible to him. He rose from his seat and made his way towards the bar counter to settle his bill for the drinks he had consumed, eager to conclude his time at the establishment and embark on his journey to the nightclub. "Weren't you serving just moments ago?" he asked, surprised to find Aurora stationed at the POS machine, processing payments. "My friend who was supposed to be here went to the washroom, so I'm filling in for her until she returns," Aurora explained, maintaining her professional demeanor as she continued to handle the transactions. "Ooh, all right then, how much do I owe?" John inquired, wanting to know the amount he needed to settle for his drinks. "Let me check," Aurora replied, inputting the table number John had occupied to access the total amount due for his tab. "That will be $74, Aurora stated, having glanced at the POS machine. "How would you like to make the payment?" she inquired, ready to assist John with his chosen method of payment. "Card," he replied, reaching into his wallet and retrieving a card to complete the payment transaction. "Tip?" she inquired, politely asking if he would like to add a gratuity to the transaction. 35%, he replied. "Please swipe here," Aurora requested, having already factored in the 35% tip, ensuring it was included in the transaction. "Shouldn't you be a bit more intoxicated? The machine shows 10 glasses ordered at your table, yet you seem perfectly fine. Did you happen to spill the other 9 glasses as well?" Aurora asked jokingly. Smiling, he responded, "I actually consumed all of them. I consider myself quite the heavy drinker," subtly boasting about his capacity for alcohol. "Wow," Aurora remarked flirtatiously, a playful glimmer in her eyes. Swiftly recovering her composure, she said, "Here is your receipt," as she handed him the receipts. "When will you be finished here?" he asked, taking a leap of faith, hoping to extend their interaction beyond the confines of the establishment. "In about 30 minutes, why?" Aurora replied, her smile growing as she entertained the question. "Once you're finished, are you free? I'd like to invite you to join me in embracing the night," John proposed, his interest evident as he eagerly awaited her response. "Unfortunately, I won't be available as I have plans to spend time with a friend," Aurora responded, her tone apologetic yet firm. "That's unfortunate," John said with a hint of disappointment, and then he began to make his way towards the exit, accepting the reality of the situation. "But you could join us if she agrees," she interjected as she noticed him preparing to leave, offering him an alternative possibility if her friend was amenable to the idea. "That works too," he replied, his disappointment fading as he considered the alternative possibility presented by Aurora. "Sure, can I have your phone number so I can reach out to you if she agrees?" she inquired, her eyes shining with anticipation upon witnessing his positive response. "My number is," John began, providing Aurora with his contact information for her to reach out to him. Aurora quickly typed John's number, saving it in her phone. Without hesitation, she dialed the number and promptly ended the call as soon as it connected. With a playful smile, she revealed, "That's my number. See you later." Then, John bid her farewell with a nod and a smile, before promptly departing from the bar, heading towards the nightclub to embrace the night and enjoy the moments of his life. Warning: mature content. 2 a.m. that night, John and Aurora could be seen entering a hotel room, their bodies entwined with an undeniable allure. His hands firmly held her waist, while hers explored his physique with tantalizing touch. The air crackled with an intense heat, as anticipation and desire hung thick in the atmosphere. Although they had not yet embarked on further intimacy, their intentions seemed poised on the precipice of passion, tempting them to give in to their impulses right there in the hallway, had the room been just a bit further away. Having left the nightclub behind, they found themselves in the hotel room after Aurora's friend had cancelled their plans due to an unexpected emergency. After indulging in a few drinks and exchanging playful banter for about an hour, their desires became insurmountable, leading them to conclude that Aurora's house was too far and John's place was not suitable for their rendezvous. They made the mutual decision to seek refuge in a nearby hotel instead. Inside the hotel room. As soon as the hotel room door swung open, they were consumed by an insatiable hunger for one another. Their lips met in a fiery kiss, their bodies pressed together, and their hands explored the contours of each other's bodies. Closing the door with a swift kick, they indulged in their newfound intimacy. Every touch ignited a wave of pleasure, fueling their desires and intensifying the connection between them. In that moment, the world outside ceased to exist, and all that mattered was the electrifying passion that enveloped them in a sensual embrace. John passionately lifted Aurora by her waist, bringing her closer to him as he kissed her. John skillfully maneuvered, carrying her in his arms towards the bed. Upon reaching the bed, John gently laid Aurora on the bed, his body hovering over hers. Their eyes locked, brimming with anticipation, as he claimed her lips in a deep, fervent kiss once again. As their lips molded together, he delicately took hold of her hands, intertwining their fingers, and guided them to rest above her head. When her hands reached where he wanted them, he moved his hands under her blouse to gain access to her breasts that were still being held by her bra. He gently slid his hands that were nestled inside her blouse, delicately undoing the clasps of her bra, yearning to set her free and revel in the intimacy they both sought. As he fondled her breasts and savored the delightful curves of her now liberated breasts, Aurora couldn't contain her pleasure, and soft moans escaped her lips during the brief pause they took amidst their passionate kisses. The absence of the bra allowed for a more direct and intimate connection, intensifying the pleasurable sensations coursing through her body. She surrendered herself to the pleasure, relishing in the passionate touch that awakened her senses. He continued to lovingly fondle her breasts, his touch alternating between gentle caresses and teasing pinches. Each time his fingers playfully squeezed her sensitive flesh, Aurora's pleasure intensified, her moans growing in both volume and pitch. The delightful mixture of sensations ignited a fiery desire within her. Empowered by the intoxicating pleasure radiating from Aurora's being, John's desire to explore every inch of her body intensified. Understanding John's intentions, Aurora eagerly raised her hands, granting him unobstructed access to remove the brazier with ease. The unspoken understanding between them heightened the intimacy of the moment, as their desires harmoniously converged. With a subtle gesture, Aurora conveyed her willingness, inviting John to explore her bared form. And there they were, her breasts liberated from the constraints of the brazier, bouncing with a playful rhythm. Boing, boing, they moved, swaying in a mesmerizing dance, as if trying to return to a state of tranquility after being stirred by John's swift removal of the garment. The gentle motion accentuated their natural allure, captivating both John and Aurora in a moment of mesmerizing beauty and intimate connection. John's eyes were momentarily captivated by the breathtaking beauty that had been concealed beneath the brazier. However, his admiration quickly transformed into a passionate desire to savor the exquisite pleasure before him. With an eager movement, he leaned in and sensually took one of her breasts into his mouth, his lips and tongue exploring every contour. Simultaneously, his free hand continued to lovingly fondle and caress the other, heightening Aurora's pleasure and deepening their intimate connection. "Ooh yes, that's good," Aurora moaned with pleasure, her voice a testament to the bliss that consumed her. As John's mouth skillfully pleasured her, she couldn't help but hold his head tenderly, her fingers gently caressing his hair, lost in the depths of her ecstasy. John, who had been savoring the exquisite sensation of pleasuring her breasts, gradually shifted his attention downward. With a deliberate descent, his lips and tongue traversed her soft skin until they reached her belly button. The trail of his affectionate kisses left a tantalizing path, igniting a sense of anticipation for the pleasures yet to come. With a tender kiss bestowed upon her belly button, John indulged in the sweet exploration of her body, but his desire for her extended beyond a single spot, as he eagerly returned to lavishing her with passionate kisses along her neck. Their longing lips collided once more, rekindling the fiery connection they shared. As their fervor intensified, his hands instinctively sought to further the exploration, deftly unzipping her trousers and guiding them down. Aurora wasted no time in removing her trousers, eagerly assisted by John. With a seamless and synchronized effort, they swiftly discarded the garment, allowing her body to be exposed and ready for the pleasures that awaited them. As he was kissing her, John's other hand delicately caressed Aurora's moistened honey nectar. With a purposeful motion, he gently inserted a single finger, pressing it inside her, eliciting a passionate moan from Aurora. The sensitive nerves within the walls of her vagina eagerly responded, transmitting waves of pleasure to her brain. Overwhelmed by a wave of irresistible desire, Aurora's hunger for pleasure surged within her. In a display of passion, she pushed John onto the bed, causing his finger to slip out of her, which in turn evoked another moan of pleasure from her lips. In a swift motion, she positioned herself on top of him, driven by a primal instinct to dominate and indulge in their shared desire. With a forceful and determined movement, she removed his shirt, unveiling his bare chest. Aurora swiftly moved her attention downwards. With the assistance of John, she deftly opened the zipper of his trousers and removed them with a sense of urgency. With the removal of John's trousers, his erect member stood proudly before them, akin to a sword freed from its sheath. Captivated by the impressive size of John's manhood, Aurora's hands delicately wrapped around it, marveling at its girth and length. With a mixture of curiosity and desire, she began to explore its contours, feeling its firmness and the pulsating heat that emanated from it. The sheer size of his member allowed her to caress it with both hands, feeling the weight and power it possessed. As her touch conveyed both tenderness and excitement, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Aurora utilized the natural lubrication of John's precum to stroke his cock. With a confident and eager motion, she positioned her head and took his throbbing member into her mouth, focusing her attention on pleasuring the sensitive head. Ah! Her skilled tongue and suction elicited primal moans of pleasure from John. As Aurora continued to pleasure John with her mouth, the saliva naturally flowed between her hands on his cock, creating an additional layer of lubrication. The slickness enhanced her movements, allowing her hands to glide effortlessly along the length of John's throbbing cock. With each stroke, the sensations of warmth, wetness, and pressure heightened the pleasure for John. After dedicating a few minutes to focusing on the head of his cock, Aurora released one of her hands from its back and forth rotating motion. With a swift movement, she transitioned her mouth to encompass the area that her hand had previously attended to, leaving behind just one hand to continue the tantalizing strokes along his length. Aurora's head bobbed rhythmically up and down, demonstrating her expertise in pleasuring John's cock. With each skillful movement, she engulfed him with her warm, wet mouth, creating an intense sensation that sent waves of pleasure coursing through his body. John's moans of ecstasy filled the air, a testament to the overwhelming pleasure he experienced from her exceptional oral skills. The intensity of her oral prowess brought him immense satisfaction, especially after a prolonged period of abstinence, heightening the pleasure and building towards an explosive climax. Aurora, fueled by her insatiable desire for pleasure, decided to challenge herself further. With a determined mindset, she released her grip on the remaining hand that was stroking John's cock. In a bold move, she took a deep breath and expertly maneuvered her mouth to accommodate the entire length of his impressive 9-inch cock. As she deep-throated him, her neck bulged slightly from the invigorating stretch, momentarily obstructing her breath. The sensation of being filled completely, coupled with the slight deprivation of air, intensified her arousal, causing her honey nectar to flow even more abundantly. Overwhelmed by the intensity of the experience, Aurora held the deep-throating position for an extended period, reveling in the euphoria of the suffocating ecstasy. However, as the seconds ticked by, the lack of oxygen began to take its toll, pushing her to the brink of losing consciousness. With a gasp for air, she reluctantly withdrew her mouth from John's cock, needing a moment to catch her breath and replenish her oxygen supply. Sensing the need for a brief respite, John seized the opportunity to catch his breath. The heightened arousal and the prolonged pleasurable experience had brought him to the brink of orgasm within mere minutes. Seizing the moment, John's hands firmly gripped Aurora's cheeks as he pulled her up onto his face, indulging in a passionate and deep kiss. Their tongues intertwined, exploring each other's mouths with a fervent hunger. As the kiss intensified, he gently pushed her off from on top of him, transitioning their positions. Now, it was John who took the dominant role, moving on top of her, his body pressing against hers. Warning: mature content. Seizing the moment, John's hands firmly gripped Aurora's cheeks as he pulled her up onto his face, indulging in a passionate and deep kiss. Their tongues intertwined, exploring each other's mouths with a fervent hunger. As the kiss intensified, he gently pushed her off from on top of him, transitioning their positions. Now, it was John who took the dominant role, moving on top of her, his body pressing against hers. With a fervent desire, John's lips trailed a path of fiery kisses from her mouth to her neck, further down to her enticing breasts, and teasingly explored her sensitive belly button. As his hands gripped her hips, an uncontrollable wave of lust overcame him, clouding his judgment. In his haste and overwhelming desire, he unintentionally applied too much force, resulting in the ripping of her underwear. The fabric gave way, exposing Aurora's glistening, bare, and cleanly shaven pussy, drenched in the intoxicating essence of her arousal. Without a moment's hesitation, John positioned his head between her thighs, his mouth eagerly exploring the delicate folds of her pussy. He indulged in the intoxicating taste and scent, skillfully using his tongue and lips to pleasure her. Aurora's body responded instinctively, writhing in pleasure as waves of ecstasy washed over her, unable to resist the intense sensations John was evoking. With his mouth still firmly latched onto her pulsating clit, John's hands skillfully explored the depths of her wetness, his fingers plunging into her eagerly. He synchronized his movements, alternating between the rhythmic thrusts of his fingers and the passionate flicks of his tongue, driving Aurora wild with pleasure. The combination of his oral and manual stimulation heightened her arousal, causing her moans of delight to fill the room. Aurora's moans grew louder and more intense as John's finger penetrated deeper into her, hitting all the right spots. The sensations coursing through her body were overwhelming, as pleasure radiated from her core. She couldn't help but arch her back, pushing herself further onto his hand, craving more of the electrifying pleasure that was building within her. Aurora's voice was filled with desire and urgency as she said, "I can't hold it anymore, I want it inside, put it in me." Her words resonated with a deep longing for him to satisfy her burning desires. With her hands firmly gripping his head, she made her intentions clear. She craved the feeling of him inside her, filling her with ecstasy and bringing them both to the peak of pleasure. John, understanding Aurora's impatience and longing, positioned himself between her legs and guided his erect member towards her slick entrance. He held his throbbing shaft in his hand, teasingly tapping it against her wet folds, eliciting moans of anticipation from her. However, the intense gaze she gave him made it clear that she was ready for him to stop teasing and to penetrate her without further delay. Without wasting any more time, John aligned his pulsating member with Aurora's eagerly awaiting entrance. With a surge of desire, he pressed forward, feeling her warm and inviting depths envelop him. Time seemed to stand still for a moment as their bodies connected in a passionate union. A gasp escaped Aurora's lips, mingling with a low groan from John as the whole 9-inch cock entered her wet pussy. Aurora's body quivered with pleasure as John's entry sent waves of ecstasy coursing through her. "Ugh!" her moan echoed in the room, a symphony of pleasure and satisfaction. The intense sensation of being stretched and filled after a prolonged anticipation overwhelmed her, leading to an immediate orgasm that washed over her like a tidal wave. She clung tightly to John, her nails digging into his back as her orgasm cascaded through her body, leaving her gasping for breath and trembling with satisfaction. Aurora's body quivered and trembled with the aftershocks of her intense orgasm, but her desire burned brightly within her. Locking eyes with John, "Don't stop," she pleaded for him not to stop, her voice filled with a desperate longing. The words hung in the air, urging him to continue the passionate dance they had embarked upon. Without hesitation, John resumed his rhythmic movements, driven by the shared desire and the primal connection between them. Pa, 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 pa. John unleashed his newfound strength, his thrusts becoming more powerful and assertive. The sound of their bodies colliding echoed through the room, a symphony of pleasure and desire. Each thrust sent waves of sensation coursing through Aurora's body, intensifying the pleasure that surged within her. With every pa of their bodies meeting, their connection deepened, fueled by raw passion and an insatiable hunger for each other. As their bodies moved in perfect harmony, John's chest pressed against Aurora's sensitive nipples, igniting sparks of pleasure with each passionate thrust. The friction between them sent waves of ecstasy coursing through her, intensifying her already heightened state of arousal. Their lips locked in a passionate and aggressive kiss, their tongues intertwining in a dance of desire. Aurora's moans mingled with their shared breath, a symphony of pleasure and longing. This continued for more than 15 minutes before, with a swift movement, John changed their position, guiding Aurora onto her stomach and placing her in a doggy position. The anticipation in the air grew as they both understood the next course of action. Aurora arched her back, presenting herself to him, eagerly granting him access to her glistening nectar once again. The air was thick with desire as John positioned himself behind her, ready to delve into her depths with renewed passion. John, not wasting any more time, immediately plunged the 9-incher back inside Aurora's welcoming warmth, resuming his rhythmic movements with fervor. The room filled with the sounds of their moans and the rhythmic slapping of their bodies colliding once again. Pa, 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 ah, 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 ah. Aurora's pleasure soared to new heights as John relentlessly continued his passionate assault on her quivering body. Every sensation became amplified, and their connection deepened with every passing moment. John's newfound stamina did not disappoint him as he successfully held back his release for over 45 minutes. With a deep grunt, he signaled to Aurora that he was on the brink of climax. But Aurora, still enveloped in the blissful afterglow, expressed her desire with a breathy voice. "Release it inside me, I want to feel it deep within." Ugh! John's primal instincts took over as he unleashed a guttural grunt, his body convulsing with pleasure, as he poured every last drop of his essence deep inside her. The raw intensity of the moment filled the air, leaving them both breathless and satisfied. "Ah!" Aurora moaned, her voice filled with pleasure as she felt John's hot fluid surging inside her, coating the walls of her pulsating vagina. The sensation sent waves of ecstasy coursing through her body, intensifying the connection between them in that blissful moment of release. PFRGH, Aurora's pussy, now sensitive and well used, emitted a slight sound as John's cock slid out, leaving a trail of their shared intimacy. John was taken aback by the fact that his erection remained firm and his energy levels remained high even in the moments of post-sex clarity. He couldn't help but marvel at his body's new resilience and the absence of fatigue that usually followed such intense physical activity. "Thank you, Sir Aaron," he thought to himself as he rose from the bed. He then reached out and pulled the naked Aurora towards him, positioning her leg on his shoulder and the other between his kneeling legs. Without wasting any more time, he immediately inserted his cock inside her pussy, once more eliciting a deep moan from her who was still relishing on the gloom from the previous session. The lights continued to shine brightly, illuminating the room, while the passionate moaning persisted until the break of dawn. Due to Aurora's exhaustion and inability to keep up with John's immense sexual stamina in the following days, she decided to invite her friend, who had cancelled their previous meeting, to share the load and enjoy the experience together. As he continued contemplating at the balcony, he turned around to see Aurora and her friend Lucy peacefully sleeping. A mix of thoughts and questions filled his mind, and he couldn't help but vocalize them to himself. Now that only a week remains in the break given to me by Sir Aaron, how will our relationship continue? He pondered aloud. Will Sir Aaron allow me to continue having this connection if I ask for his permission? The questions swirled in his thoughts, leaving him both curious and uncertain about what lay ahead. Although he cherished the relationship he shared with Aurora and Lucy, he was prepared to sever all ties if Sir Aaron commanded him to do so without hesitation or second thoughts. His loyalty and devotion to Sir Aaron were unwavering, and he was willing to sacrifice his own desires for the sake of following his orders. The depth of his commitment to Sir Aaron knew no bounds, and he would prioritize his master's wishes above all else, even if it meant letting go of the connections he held dear. His contemplation was interrupted by a notification on his phone, emitting a distinct ding sound. He picked up his phone to see what the message was about, and to his surprise, it was from Sir Aaron. Without wasting any time, he eagerly opened the message and was taken aback by its contents. It simply read, "Yes, you can." This indicated that Sir Aaron was aware of everything that had been going on. 2 months later, "Congratulations, sir, for finally completing the collection of brain data from everyone on the list." Nova congratulated Aaron as he collected the brain data of the last person on his list. Finally, Aaron said as he let out a sigh of relief while removing the virtual headgear from the woman. That took 2 weeks longer than planned, Aaron said as he made his way to the front door, preparing to leave the house and begin his drive back to his home state. He was in the state nearest to his, and now it was time to conclude his journey and return home. Have the forces completed their vacations? Aaron asked as he started his car and embarked on his drive back to his home state. 345 of them have already arrived at the hotel you rented, and as for the remaining 30, they will arrive within the next 2 weeks, Nova reported back to Aaron. Good. For now, they should mingle with each other and get to know one another. In 2 weeks, when everyone has arrived, I will personally visit them and officially begin the organization's operations, Aaron said. Are you planning to immediately send them to Eden? Nova asked. No, as that may attract the attention of Adolf and other intelligence organizations. We will send the first batch of 20 people to purchase an island and initiate the construction of a temporary base. Another group will be dispatched to various arms dealers to procure the necessary equipment for everyone. The remaining individuals will be sent in batches of 10 every other week to join those in Eden and commence their refreshment training with the equipment that will be smuggled in from around the world. Aaron outlined his plan. There is that. Also, only 2.5 months are left until the Morgans make their move and attack the Rothschilds, Nova reminded Aaron. I'm aware. Has Ava sent Rena's investment account details and has the loan been deposited? He inquired, eager to confirm if Rena had completed her preparations. Yes, she sent it to me at the end of last month, and I have already started making the necessary preparations for Rena using the funds in her investment account, Nova replied. How much was in the account? There was a total of $7 billion in the account, sir, Nova reported the amount. If I recall correctly, she initially requested around $5 billion. What caused the increase to $7 billion? He asked, expressing his astonishment at the raised amount. Her brother informed the banks that she intended to request loans with the condition that if she defaulted, he would purchase the loan from them without any loss to the banks. Recognizing that they would not be at risk of losing money, they allowed her to increase the loan amount, Nova explained, shedding light on the reason behind the increased loan amount. Indeed, it appears that he is hoping for her failure in whatever she plans to use the loan for, enabling him to acquire and wield it as a weapon against her, Aaron remarked, understanding Aria's motive for promising the banks to purchase her defaulted loan. Yes, sir, Nova replied, nodding in agreement with his assumption, indicating that he was correct. How much of our funds are being allocated to this plan? Aaron asked, wanting to compare the proportion of his own money that would be utilized in the plan. Sir, a total of $15 billion is being allocated for this plan, Nova immediately reported, providing the requested amount without any delay. What? When did I have that much money? Aaron asked in surprise, as he was certain that the dividend he had received was nowhere near that amount. Sir, you gave me permission to invest the money as I saw fit, and I did so during that period. I managed to generate substantial earnings, which accounted for the remainder of the money, Nova explained, shedding light on the source of the additional funds. Where did you invest such a large amount of money to yield such a high return in such a short period? Aaron asked, curious to learn about Nova's investing strategy that had resulted in such impressive gains. At the beginning, since I had access to all publicly available data, I utilized it to create a comprehensive profile of information crucial for accurate investment decisions. This included analyzing press releases, monitoring rumors, tracking social media posts, gathering leaked information, and much more. With this data, I could predict certain events with a notable level of certainty. For instance, I anticipated when the U.S. Federal Reserve planned to initiate the tapering of its bond buying program, enabling me to prepare and profit accordingly. I also positioned myself based on expectations of positive or negative reports from specific companies, allowing me to capitalize on the outcomes. Economic indicators released by various countries further provided opportunities to profit from market reactions. However, the most profitable aspect was leveraging geopolitical events. Heightened tensions in Ukraine, conflicts in the Middle East, and other geopolitical uncertainties allowed me to prepare in advance and extract maximum benefits. Sometimes, I even instigated certain rumors to expedite events and capitalize on them sooner than expected. There are many more strategies, but explaining them all concisely is challenging. However, when you transferred me to the quantum computer, everything changed. I no longer needed to predict and prepare in advance, as I could instantly react to market conditions, yielding even greater profits than before. Currently, my performance is limited by the internet speed between my location and the trading servers. If it were doubled, I estimate I could have earned an additional $255 million. Nova elaborated on her investment approach to Aaron, detailing how she generated substantial returns within a short time frame. Holy Mother, Aaron couldn't help but exclaim in amazement as he realized the magnitude of the impact caused by his simple decision to allow Nova to invest his money, aiming to prevent it from losing value due to inflation. The realization struck him that this choice had created a certain ripple in the world economy. Has anyone discovered your activities? Such substantial movements are bound to attract attention, Aaron asked, curious to know if Nova's remarkable work had been uncovered by anyone. I utilize over 100 different investment accounts from various anonymous investment firms to mitigate the risk of detection, Nova explained. When one account undergoes significant transactions, I close it, withdraw the funds, and transfer them to new accounts. This method helps me avoid leaving a conspicuous trail and minimizes the chances of attracting excessive attention from other investors. Wow, you truly have thought of everything. Well done. Aaron couldn't help but express his pride in her accomplishments. Thank you, sir, Nova replied, showing her genuine happiness and gratitude for Aaron's recognition of her hard work. So, how much money did you accumulate as a result of these significant movements? He asked, eager to learn the total amount Nova had earned through her investments. Since you granted me permission to utilize the full amount of money in your account for investing, I have earned a total of $8,834,423,876 in the last 6 months, Nova accurately reported. Wow, he only managed to utter these words, the remainder being swallowed by sheer astonishment. Looks like Buffett has got himself some competition, Aaron joked, once he had collected himself from the surprise. Haha, Nova chuckled in response to Aaron's comment. After laughing for a short period of time, he asked, why are we only utilizing $15 billion for the preparations regarding the Morgan's movements, seeking clarification? The remaining $3,834,423,876 are allocated for various purposes, Nova explained. They are intended to strengthen our forces, provide ongoing support for revolutionary movements, address family needs, serve as emergency funds in case unforeseen circumstances arise, and account for potential complications or setbacks in our plan against the Morgans. As you once mentioned, humans can be unpredictable, and it is wise to prepare for the worst-case scenario. Looks like you've been listening to my words, Aaron joked, feeling a sense of pride that his casual words of wisdom had influenced Nova to incorporate certain adjustments into her planning. I always am, Nova replied softly. Have the selected individuals already joined Alexander's group? Aaron asked, shifting the conversation to the current happenings in Eden. Nearly all of them have already joined, and based on the plan we provided, Alexander has decentralized the leadership of his group across different cities, Nova reported the current state of affairs in Eden. This distribution of leadership provides a level of semi-autonomy to individuals in various cities, increasing control and reducing the risk of discovery by avoiding concentrated leadership in one location. By maintaining control over the leaders in different cities, he can effectively streamline control within his group. Good. Keep monitoring his activities closely and notify me of any significant developments, he instructed upon hearing the update on the situation. Yes, sir, Nova answered back. 5 hours later, after 5 hours of non-stop driving, he finally arrived at his home. Good afternoon, he greeted Donald, the head of his security detail who was on duty at the house that day, as he stepped out of the car. Good afternoon, Sir Aaron. Welcome back, Donald greeted with a smile on his face, expressing his warm welcome to Aaron. Did any issues arise while we were away? He asked. No, sir. Thankfully, nothing of that sort occurred, Donald reported back, reassuring Aaron that there were no notable issues during his absence. Okay then, have a good day, Aaron said, bidding farewell to Donald as he entered the house for the first time in 2 months. After stowing his belongings in the basement, he made his way to the bathroom, where he refreshed himself with a thorough wash. Following that, he prepared a delicious omelette, sat down to enjoy his meal, and then retired to his room for some much-needed rest. It would be the first time in a very long while that he could sleep peacefully, free from the burdens and pressures of his recent endeavors. Eden. How many new members did our group gain this month? Alexander asked his assistant about the number of new members in his groups. We have gained over 50,000 new members, sir. If this trend continues, we can expect to have more than 500,000 members in the next few months, his assistant replied, brimming with excitement in his voice. It is surprising that we haven't caught Adolf's attention yet, Alexander remarked, placing his hand on his chin as he contemplated the matter. The program you provided us with seems remarkably effective in erasing any traces if a member is suspected of being a traitor. Where did you commission such a program? His assistant asked curiously. I commissioned it during my visit to America for the leaders meeting a few months ago, Alexander replied, though his response lacked definitive details. But sir, why are we not planning any large demonstrations even after gaining such a substantial number of new members? Holding such events could elevate our standing in the eyes of other revolutionary groups, his assistant asked, expressing his curiosity about the absence of efforts to elevate their group's position. Not at the moment. We need to further increase our numbers so that when we do plan something, it will be on a grand scale that cannot be ignored, Alexander replied, sharing his reason with his assistant. However, he concealed the fact that when the demonstration would eventually take place, it would mark both the first and last gathering of their group, as on that day, there would be no dictator left to protest against, as the dictator would either be imprisoned or deceased. Another reason is that with the significant influx of new members, our funds are depleting rapidly. Therefore, I am currently exploring ways to secure additional funding to support a large-scale protest, he added, emphasizing the need to address their financial constraints before organizing such an event. Yes, sir, his assistant nodded, bidding him farewell before returning to his office to resume his work. When Alexander found himself alone, he retrieved his phone and dialed Aaron's phone number. Hello, a female voice was heard on the other side of the phone. Hello, Alexander greeted, recognizing the female voice on the other end of the line belonging to someone he had spoken to on several occasions in the past months. May I speak with Sir Aaron, please? Alexander asked respectfully. No pride or superiority could be felt in his tone at all. That would be difficult as he is currently resting. However, you can share with me what you would have asked him, and I will make sure to forward your message to him, Nova responded on Aaron's behalf. All right then, what I actually wanted to discuss with him is the possibility of obtaining additional financial support, considering the large influx of new members we have experienced. Alexander explained his intention to ask Aaron for more funding. Sure, consider it taken care of, Nova promptly responded without any hesitation. Thanks, he expressed his gratitude, but in his mind, he couldn't help but think, that was too easy. She didn't even ask about the approximate amount we might need, the number of new members, or what we were planning to use the money for. Is there anything else? Nova asked, inquiring if there were any additional requests or matters to address. Could you please provide me with more information about the timing and execution strategy of the plan? Alexander inquired. He expressed his desire to acquire additional details in order to incorporate them into his future planning, as he had been given only a few key points and lacked a comprehensive understanding of the entire plan. The plan will be sent to your computers by evening or even tonight. I recommend that you read it together with all the city leaders under your command, as they need to be informed and involved in order to make their strategic moves accordingly, Nova explained to Alexander. Yes, miss. Then I wish you a good day. Alexander bid her farewell and waited for the person on the other side to end the call as a sign of respect, acknowledging the power dynamics at play. Have a good day, Nova bid him farewell and ended the call. Alexander returned to continue his work, but within 5 minutes, he heard a notification sound from his computer. Without wasting any time, he opened the notification and was surprised to see that it was a bank transfer confirmation. Some people are way too rich, he murmured in awe as he observed the substantial sum of $55 million that had been transferred into his account from multiple sources, strategically done to bypass any security measures. When he had made the request for funding and received immediate approval without any questions asked, Alexander had anticipated a modest amount, Perhaps no more than $1 million, which would have sufficed to support their operations until the crucial day of the uprising. However, the unexpected transfer of $55 million signaled something far greater. It became evident that this substantial sum encompassed not only their immediate needs but also the budget allocated for the entire uprising itself. The realization left Alexander both amazed and daunted by the scale of resources now at their disposal. However, Alexander couldn't help but feel that the allocated amount of $55 million was an overkill. Based on his own simplistic calculations, he believed that they would require no more than $10 million to achieve their objectives. This left him curious and intrigued about the intended use of the remaining funds. Knowing Aaron's meticulous nature, he understood that every cent had been carefully allocated with a specific purpose in mind. As he contemplated the possibilities, Alexander couldn't help but wonder what grand plans lay ahead, waiting to be executed with the remaining budget. Seems like the spending plan will be sent alongside the main plan in the evening, Alexander mused to himself, realizing that he would have to wait for the official documentation before making any assumptions or guesses. With that in mind, he decided to shift his focus away from speculation and patiently await the comprehensive plan and spending details that would be provided later in the day. After a few hours of rest, Aaron woke up feeling refreshed. He proceeded to freshen up by washing himself, and then enjoyed a light meal to energize himself. With his mind clear and ready for action, he headed straight to the basement to continue his work. "Log in," Aaron commanded as he laid down on his makeshift bed and put on the helmet. "Welcome, sir," Nova greeted him as he passed through the gate, entering the universal simulation. "Thanks. Did anything happen while I was sleeping?" he asked, curious if there were any significant events during his rest. "Yes, sir," Alexander called, requesting funds to support his group and expressing his desire to review the unredacted plan for the revolution. He wants to start planning ahead of time and avoid any counterproductive actions due to a lack of knowledge about our complete plan, Nova reported. "What did you do?" Aaron asked about Nova's actions. Nova replied, "For the funding problem, I sent him $55 million. As for the unredacted plan, I informed him that it would be sent to him by night." "Good," Aaron responded. "Send him the report since we have already vetted everyone within the leadership and removed any individuals who pose a risk of betrayal. There is nothing to worry about." "Yes, I have just forwarded the plan to him. All the leaders have already gathered in an office, and for those unable to attend physically, they are participating via a conference call in an isolated room," Nova reported, providing information based on what she saw from the cameras and heard from the microphones of the attending members' devices. "Now, let's take a look at their reactions," Aaron said as he settled into the chair that Nova had prepared for him. "Yes, sir," Nova agreed. She created a large projection in front of Aaron and then established a time bubble around them, synchronizing the time within the bubble to match real-world time. This was necessary because watching the video within the accelerated universal simulation would have resulted in significant lag. As time in the simulation was 5 times faster than real-world time, watching a 1-minute video would have required them to wait 5 minutes in the simulation. By aligning the time within the bubble with real-world time, they could watch the video without any delays or time discrepancies. Title: Operation Hell, Heaven's Uprising, Confidential Report. Introduction. This report outlines a conclusive plan for the overthrow of the government of Eden, to be executed during the Founders' Day celebrations. Objective. The primary objective of Operation Hell, Heaven's Uprising is to orchestrate a well-coordinated uprising to overthrow the government of Eden during the symbolic Founders' Day celebrations. By choosing this specific occasion, we aim to exploit the vulnerability and distraction of the government, maximizing the chances of a successful revolution. Rationale. Symbolic importance, strategic timing, diversionary tactics. Execution plan. Recruitment and training, information gathering. Coordinated uprising, seizing key positions, public support. As everyone in the meeting quietly read through the plan, their expressions revealed everything but calm. Despite their efforts to control their emotions, they couldn't help but show their surprise and astonishment. The level of detail in the plan was far beyond what any one person could conceive, leaving them in awe of the intricate strategy laid out before them. "Who came up with this plan?" asked Adam, one of the regional leaders, in an excited tone. "I can't tell you that," As they wished to remain anonymous, Alexander replied, intentionally avoiding mentioning Aaron's involvement in the plan. Although the plan is well thought out and feasible, it requires a significant amount of funding, and I'm not certain if we can acquire it without attracting the attention of Adolf and other revolutionary groups. Adam voiced his concern. When it comes to funding, you don't have to worry about that. A generous donor has covered the entire cost, so all we have to do now is start planning the execution of the plan, Alexander reassured Adam. Although the plan is very detailed, it seems like there is something missing, Ace chimed in after completing his reading, having identified a gap in the report. What part is missing? Alexander asked, curious to know about the omission. Although the plan outlines our strategy of utilizing the preparations for the celebration of the founding days as a cover to gather ourselves and exploit the weaknesses created by the concentration of forces in other important locations, it overlooks the crucial aspect of dealing with the remaining army. While they may not be a formidable force compared to global standards, they still comprise an armed military of 34,000 personnel. Despite Adolf's focus on his private forces, we cannot disregard the presence of the army. We need to address how we will handle them, he explained, highlighting the missing component of the plan. That aspect will be handled by our backer, Alexander replied in response to the question. Who is that backer? We need to know him to see if we can trust him and what he plans to gain from all of this when everything is over, Ace said immediately after hearing the answer from Alexander. We are not children. We all know that someone who will invest such a large amount of money always has something to gain, and we are not against it or anything. We just need to know his intentions so that we can choose on whether to trust him or not. When Alexander heard the question, he realized that he couldn't provide a direct answer without divulging the identity and intentions of their backer. He found himself stuck between a rock and a hard place, torn between revealing Aaron as the backer or withholding the information, which could lead to dissatisfaction or opposition among the group. Alexander contemplated the consequences of both options, weighing the potential benefits of transparency against the risks of compromising their benefactor's anonymity. As Alexander was contemplating, ding, his phone chimed with a notification. Though he could have chosen to ignore it, he recognized the specific notification sound as one assigned only to Aaron. This indicated that the message held importance, compelling him to swiftly retrieve his phone and open the message, regardless of how it might be perceived by the others in attendance. The message contained a simple statement, "You can tell them about me." While the message provided relief to Alexander, it also evoked a sense of unease. The words held dual significance. On one hand, it signified Aaron's approval for Alexander to reveal his identity to the others. On the other hand, it carried a more ominous implication, one that suggested Aaron's omnipresence and control, insinuating that every action and word was under his watchful gaze. Is it important? The man, growing impatient, asked Alexander if the notification he had just received was important, unaware of the significance it held for Alexander and the weight it carried in the current situation. No, let's continue with the meeting, Alexander replied, discreetly slipping his phone back into his pocket. Since you want to know who our backer is, his name is Aaron. As for what he wants to gain from us after everything has succeeded, he wants the Constitution to abolish the military and dismantle all its associated institutions, Alexander explained, keeping his response short and concise. What? The room erupted in surprise and shock upon hearing Alexander's revelation. The suddenness and audacity of Aaron's proposition left everyone unable to maintain their composure. Why would he want such a bullshit thing? Ace angrily exclaimed, unable to comprehend Aaron's motive behind wanting to abolish the military. When Alexander heard the man dismiss Aaron's demand as bullshit, he felt a sinking feeling in his heart, knowing that Aaron was listening to the entire conversation. In an attempt to prevent further insults and potential consequences, Alexander quickly intervened, offering an explanation. His private forces will be taking its place, he clarified, hoping to pacify the situation and alleviate any concerns. Why the heck would he want to do that? Ace continued asking. For the specific reasons behind his decision, I'm not entirely sure, Alexander replied honestly. And what about the 34,000 soldiers in the army? Are they just going to sit back and accept their unemployment? Let's not forget, they are armed, Ace questioned, his tone filled with mockery. As I mentioned before, when it comes to the army, there is no need to worry. Our backer, Aaron will personally handle the challenges associated with the army and all that it entails, Alexander assured them in a confident tone. I truly cannot grasp how he intends to achieve that, remarked one individual, attempting to envision the practicalities. I personally don't know of anyone in the world with a private army capable of handling and exerting control over more than 34,000 individuals, except for Ramzan Kadyrov, and Aaron's name bears no resemblance to his. It's quite perplexing to contemplate. Though I am not aware of his true capabilities, what I do know is that he possesses enough wealth to substantiate every claim he has made, Alexander responded, acknowledging his own naivety about the extent of his unwavering confidence in Aaron's abilities, not knowing where it comes from. That's too little for us to place our trust in him. Can you arrange a meeting with him so that we can personally assess his credibility and determine whether we can rely on him and comply with his demands? Or should we consider the possibility of betraying him once we have gained power and achieved our goals? Oscar proposed, causing Alexander to nervously grip his trousers, fearing the potential repercussions of the man's words. I will convey your request to meet him and inform you of his response once I receive it, Alexander replied, his voice still tinged with residual fear. With that, let's conclude today's meeting and reconvene after we receive his reply. Sensing the tense atmosphere in the room, he swiftly brought the meeting to an end, wary of provoking any actions from Aaron that could jeopardize his own safety. To Alexander, although Aaron was always civil during every interaction they had, he understood that Aaron was a formidable and potentially dangerous individual. The fact that Aaron had already invested a substantial sum of money, exceeding $250 million, indicated the seriousness of his intentions. Aaron's commitment to his promises was unwavering, and Alexander knew that any betrayal from their side would not end well for them. The vast resources Aaron had dedicated to their cause demonstrated the significance of what he stood to gain in return. Alexander recognized that the value Aaron placed on his endgame was so significant that he would not hesitate to change the group he will support if necessary. In Alexander's mind, the consequences of crossing Aaron were clear. The financial support of approximately $60 million provided by the billionaire was a relatively insignificant amount to him, akin to pocket change. Universal simulation. Aaron couldn't help but burst out laughing in disappointment upon hearing the suggestion that they should consider betraying him once they had gained power. Human minds are truly feeble, Aaron remarked with a disappointed shake of his head. It seems that when they saw an achievable plan, one of them had already contemplated betraying me. His tone carried a tale of his disappointment. I left him because it is difficult to replace him at the moment and he is still useful to us. We can get rid of him after we finish the revolution, Nova replied, gently brushing Aaron's back as a gesture of consolation. I am aware of that, and I had foreseen it, Aaron remarked, acknowledging the situation. However, there is a notable distinction between expecting something and witnessing its actual occurrence. The contrast between anticipation and reality can be quite striking. Isn't that why you took charge of handling the army yourself? Nova remarked playfully, aware of Aaron's tendency for planning for all possibilities. As you know, by forcing the generals to sign the runic contract, I will gain control over the army, enabling me to assimilate and retrain them as my own forces, Aaron explained, his tone filled with a calculated sense of power. But that is not the only reason. As a wise man once said, the romantic image of the people storming the gates and overthrowing their dictator is mostly a fantasy. If you run a middling dictatorship, the people only storm the palace when the army lets them. By retaining control over the army, I can oversee the entire process and ensure a smooth transition of power, while also shaping the constitution to include the amendments I desire and eliminating any potential for betrayal. A sinister smile crept across Aaron's face, hinting at a transformation within him. Nova, present to see this change, felt a surge of joy as she witnessed Aaron's evolution and the gradual transformation of his mindset. It was a small step, but it represented progress. Every improvement, no matter how slight, brought a sense of relief and joy to her. It seems that the time has come for me to visit Eden, Aaron declared, making his journey official. Hearing that he had finally decided to visit Eden, will you be going with the first batch of the security team? Nova asked. Yes, that would be more convenient. I need to personally introduce them to the generals to facilitate the smuggling of weapons and other materials, Aaron replied. That's true, Nova nodded in agreement with Aaron's idea. Have you finalized the list of weapons dealers? He asked, wanting to shift the discussion to a different subject. Yes, it is. However, given your requirement for dealers capable of smuggling the latest generation of weapons, the list is rather short, she replied while materializing the list in Aaron's hand. Are they what I think they are? He questioned, as he was reading the names written on the list. Yes, most of them are former US and other NATO soldiers working in private military companies, PMCs, utilizing their connections to acquire weapons from the US Army and other coalition forces deployed in Afghanistan and other Middle Eastern countries. It's the most convenient method to obtain such technology without arousing any suspicion. They can simply claim that the weapons were destroyed in combat or under other circumstances, Nova elaborated, sharing her understanding of the situation. That's good to hear. Do they have sufficient inventory to meet our requirements? Aaron asked. Fortunately, yes, and since we'll be making such a large purchase, we have the opportunity to negotiate a discount. However, such a significant transaction will raise red flags with the three-letter agencies, Nova expressed her concern. We just need to ensure that we cover our tracks once the weapons enter international waters. Once they are safely transported to Eden, even if they discover the destination, we can use the Eden Army as a cover, Aaron confidently stated. I agree, Nova answered. I don't foresee having any rest for at least the next 6 months, Aaron remarked, acknowledging the significant workload ahead. If you utilize the workforce you have at your disposal, it will grant you a few weeks of rest, so you needn't worry about that, sir, Nova reassured Aaron. Thanks, sir, the fusion lab is about to ignite the fusion reactor. Would you like to have a look at it? Nova exclaimed with excitement, informing Aaron of the significant development. Sure, let's go and take a look, Aaron said, standing up from his chair and adjusting his trousers. In an instant, Nova teleported them both to Lab City. Inside the fusion research lab, scientists in white coats bustled about, diligently conducting final checkups and ensuring that every aspect of the system was in order before initiating the ignition sequence. Their meticulous movements and focused expressions demonstrated their dedication to the task at hand, leaving no room for oversight or forgotten details. Aaron and Nova, invisible to the busy scientists in the lab, observed the unfolding scene in silence. The engineers took about half an hour to complete their final system diagnosis and other important things before they took a seat inside the control room that was filled with screens showing live video feeds of the insides of everything that would be activated today. The video feeds displayed on the screens were a product of Nova's abilities, as she accessed the simulation data for each specific location and projected them as real-time video feeds. John, the lead scientist, clapped his hand to attract the attention of everyone in the room, and then he began addressing the team. All right, everyone, let's go through the final checks before we proceed with the ignition test. Safety systems? Sarah, the safety officer, replied confidently, check. Emergency shutdown mechanisms are in place and functioning correctly. Radiation monitoring systems are active, and containment measures are secure. John nodded approvingly and continued, instrumentation calibration? Michael, the lead technician, chimed in, check. All diagnostic tools and sensors have been calibrated and verified for accuracy. We're ready to capture and monitor the experimental parameters. John turned to Peter, the vacuum systems specialist. Vacuum integrity? Peter responded, check. The vacuum system has been thoroughly tested, and there are no leaks. We have a high-quality vacuum environment for the ignition test. Excellent, John acknowledged. Fuel preparation? Linda, the fuel supply coordinator, confirmed, check. The deuterium and tritium fuel has been prepared and verified for purity. Storage and handling procedures are in place, and we have the required quantities ready for the test. John then turned to Emma, the plasma heating expert, heating and conditioning. Emma replied confidently, check. The neutral beam injection and radio frequency heating systems have been tested and are capable of reaching the required plasma temperatures. We're ready to preheat and condition the plasma. John glanced at Mark, responsible for the magnetic field generation, and asked, magnetic field generation? Mark responded, check. The power supply and control systems are functioning properly and are capable of generating the magnetic field with the strength within the desired range for stable plasma confinement. Good, John acknowledged. Interlock systems? Anna, the control systems engineer, answered, Check. The interlock systems have been tested and verified. They are connected and calibrated to activate necessary shutdowns or safety measures if any unsafe conditions arise. John then addressed the entire team. All right, we've gone through the essential checks. We're now in the final stages. Everyone, let's make sure we're focused, thorough, and maintain clear communication throughout the ignition test. Good luck, and let's make history. When Aaron heard John say that, he was about to start clapping, but he stopped himself when he noticed that the engineers remained focused on their tasks, their attention fixed on the computers in front of them. Aaron turned to Nova and asked, shouldn't they have applauded after that short motivational speech? They need to maintain their focus until the testing is completed, Nova answered. If they get excited now, they might overlook a critical detail that could have serious consequences. Don't you have everything under control? He asked, curiosity evident in his voice. Although I have the ability to prevent any mishaps, I purposely refrain from doing so. I want to provide them with a realistic environment, simulating the challenges they would face in the real world. This way, they won't overlook any critical errors that could potentially cause problems for you. Additionally, I am compiling a training manual based on their experiences, which you can use to educate engineers in the real world and prevent them from making the same mistakes, Nova explained, outlining her rationale. Thanks, he said, acknowledging Nova's explanation. He then shifted his attention back to the proceedings, as they were on the verge of commencing the reactor ignition process. Initiate the ignition sequence, John declared as he settled into his seat, signaling the start of the ignition process. The room fell into a focused silence as the team executed their pre-planned procedures. John's eyes were fixed on the central display, where a schematic diagram of the tokamak reactor flickered to life, indicating the initiation of the first crucial step. The tokamak's magnetic field, the guardian of the plasma, sprang into action. Aaron watched in awe as the powerful magnetic coils lining the reactor chamber began to surge with life. The whirring hum of electrical currents enveloped the control room as the magnetic field took shape. It was a symphony of precision engineering, a testament to human ingenuity in taming the immense forces at play. With the magnetic field established, attention turned to the plasma formation. Aaron's gaze shifted to another screen, where he could see the fuel injection system come to life. A delicate balance of hydrogen isotopes, carefully controlled by state-of-the-art valves, flowed into the tokamak's core. The process was meticulous, ensuring the precise composition necessary for successful fusion reactions. For the next 20 minutes, Aaron watched with anticipation as the fuel gracefully danced through the tokamak's intricate pathways. Sensors monitored its purity, eliminating any traces of impurities that could hinder the fusion process. The tension in the room grew as the fuel injection process neared completion, setting the stage for the fusion ignition. Upon completion, the heating mechanisms engaged, ready to nudge the plasma towards the extraordinary temperatures required for fusion. Aaron's attention focused on the powerful neutral beam injectors, their beams of high-energy particles penetrating the plasma's core. He could almost feel the energy building, the plasma responding to the invisible touch of the beams. Simultaneously, radio frequency waves enveloped the tokamak, resonating with the plasma's natural frequencies. Aaron observed the plasma's glow intensify, growing brighter and more energetic by the second. The tokamak's control systems carefully adjusted the heating parameters, creating the ideal conditions for fusion to ignite. 40 minutes later, the plasma reached the optimal temperature and density for fusion reactions to occur. Aaron held his breath as the room fell into a hushed reverence. Within the tokamak's heart, the plasma erupted into a maelstrom of energy. Fusion reactions took place, hydrogen nuclei colliding with a force that rivaled the power of the stars. In the midst of this awe-inspiring spectacle, Aaron's attention turned to the magneto-hydrodynamic (MHD) generator, the ingenious device that would harness the plasma's kinetic energy for electricity production. The generator MHD, a testament to cutting-edge engineering, stood poised to revolutionize the way energy was harvested from fusion reactors. As the fusion reactions unleashed a torrent of charged particles, the MHD generator came to life. Aaron watched with fascination as the plasma, brimming with energy, interacted with the generator's intricate network of electrodes and magnetic fields. A symphony of electromagnetic forces unfolded before his eyes, guiding the charged particles along their designated paths. The MHD generator operated on a principle of direct conversion, eschewing the need for traditional turbines or heat exchange systems. As the charged particles passed through the magnetic field within the generator, electric currents were induced. These currents, skillfully captured by the electrodes, were meticulously channeled into an external circuit. Aaron's pulse quickened as he witnessed the first sparks of electricity being harvested from the plasma. The MHD generator efficiently converted the plasma's kinetic energy into electrical power, paving the way for a more direct and efficient energy conversion process. It was a remarkable marriage of plasma physics and electrical engineering, a paradigm shift in energy generation. Aaron's pulse quickened as he witnessed the first sparks of electricity being harvested from the plasma, and just like that, a star was born.